Picture this. The leaders of France, Germany, and Ukraine walk into number 10 Downing Street. No, this isn't the setup for a joke, although given the state of international relations right now, you'd be forgiven for thinking it should be. This is a genuine crisis meeting happening because Donald Trump just published what might be the most one-sided peace plan since someone suggested solving World War I with a friendly game of football. Welcome back to UK Political Insight, where today we're diving into why Keir Starmer is hosting what's essentially an emergency intervention for Ukraine, why Europe is collectively panicking about America's approach to the war, and why Trump's idea of peace looks suspiciously like rewarding the aggressor with everything they want, plus a side order of chips. Buckle up because this one's got more twists than a pretzel factory. Let's set the stage properly. It's Monday at Downing Street, and we've got Keir Starmer playing host to what's basically the most important dinner party of the year, except instead of discussing house prices and the weather, they're trying to figure out how to stop Ukraine from being carved up like a Christmas turkey. Volodymyr Zelensky, Emmanuel Macron, and Friedrich Merz are all gathering to present a united European front in support of Ukraine. The fact that they need to present a united front at all tells you everything you need to know about how wobbly things have gotten. Because here's what's happening across the pond. Donald Trump, in his infinite wisdom, is pushing what he's calling a peace deal with Russia. Now, when most people hear peace deal, they think of negotiations, compromises, both sides giving a bit to get a bit. But Trump's version of peace apparently involves Ukraine handing over massive chunks of territory, shrinking their army, and giving up their long-range weapons, while Russia gets to keep everything they've stolen and probably gets a nice thank you card as well. It's less of a peace deal and more of a surrender with good PR. While the grown-ups are trying to have serious conversations in Downing Street, Russia is doing what Russia does best, causing absolute chaos. Over the weekend, they launched 653 drones and 51 missiles at Ukraine, targeting power stations and a railway hub near Kiev. 653 drones. That's not a military operation, that's a swarm. That's biblical plague levels of drones. And the goal? To cripple Ukraine's power grid for the fourth consecutive winter, denying civilians access to heat, light, and running water. Because nothing says let's negotiate peace quite like freezing civilians in the dark. Kiev and its Western allies are absolutely clear about what Russia's doing here. This isn't military strategy in the traditional sense. It's a war on basic human survival. Knock out the power in winter, and you're not just targeting soldiers, you're targeting grandmothers trying to stay warm, kids trying to do homework, hospitals trying to save lives. It's brutal, it's deliberate, and it's exactly the kind of thing that makes European leaders look at Trump's peace plan and think, are you actually serious right now? Now let's talk about this peace plan that's got everyone's knickers in a twist. Trump's advisors, including his son-in-law Jared Kushner and U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, are down in Florida having chats with Ukrainian officials. Nothing says serious international diplomacy quite like conducting it in Florida, the state that gave us both Disney World and Florida Man. But the real bombshell came when the White House published a 28-point peace plan that heavily favored Russia. And when I say heavily favored, I mean it was so one-sided, it might as well have been written in the Kremlin. The plan demands that Ukraine hand over the entire Donbas region, including areas that Russia's military has completely failed to capture through actual fighting. Let that sink in for a moment. Russia couldn't win these territories on the battlefield, so the American peace plan just gives it to them anyway. It's like losing at football 3-0 and then having the referee suggest that actually you should get the trophy because you tried really hard. It's participation medal diplomacy, except the participation medal is sovereign Ukrainian territory. But wait, there's more. The plan also insists Ukraine must shrink the size of its army, because obviously when your neighbor has just spent 4 years trying to invade you, the sensible thing to do is make yourself weaker and more vulnerable. That's definitely how security works. It's like having your house burgled and then your insurance company suggesting you remove your locks to show good faith. Absolutely mental. The cherry on top of this deeply questionable cake, the US-backed plan rules out European peacekeepers and demands that Kiev gives up its long-range weapons. So Ukraine loses territory, loses military capacity, loses its ability to defend itself at range, and isn't even allowed to have European friends stand guard. Trump's basically asking Ukraine to lie down and accept whatever comes next, all while calling it peace. It's the international relations equivalent of a protection racket. European leaders were, to put it mildly, gobsmacked when they saw this plan. Shocked doesn't quite cover it. It's like expecting a fair negotiation and getting handed a ransom note instead. Because what this plan essentially does is reward Russia for 4 years of aggression, war crimes, and illegal invasion. It tells every potential aggressor in the world that if you invade your neighbor and cause enough chaos, eventually America will force your victim to give you what you want just to make the noise stop. Now, to be fair, and we should always try to be fair even when it's difficult, America has since toned down their rhetoric a bit. There was a joint statement from the US and Ukraine agreeing that real progress toward any agreement depends on Russia's readiness to show serious commitment to long-term peace. Which sounds reasonable until you remember that Russia is currently launching hundreds of drones at civilian infrastructure. Their commitment to peace is about as genuine as a 3-pound note. But European leaders aren't buying the softer language because they can see what's actually happening here. Trump wants out. He wants this conflict off his desk, off the news, and out of the American budget. And if that means throwing Ukraine under the bus, well, that's just unfortunate geopolitical collateral damage. It's transactional thinking applied to human lives and national sovereignty, and it's exactly why Starmer is hosting this crisis meeting. The really spicy bit, though, comes from Trump's recently published national security strategy. This is the document that's supposed to outline America's approach to keeping itself and its allies safe. Trump described it as a roadmap to ensure that America remains the greatest and most successful nation in human history, which is certainly one way to describe a document that basically tells Europe to sort themselves out while America does whatever it wants. But buried in this strategy document is something genuinely wild. Explicit plans to interfere in the internal politics of European countries. Not suggestions, not vague diplomatic positioning, but actual stated policy to cultivate resistance to Europe's current trajectory within European nations. Read that again. The United States is openly saying it plans to meddle in European domestic politics. It's like your friend announcing they're going to start drama in your family because they don't like how you're running things. The document goes on to highlight Europe's dwindling share of the global economy and then drops this absolute banger of a phrase: civilizational erasure. Not economic challenges, not political difficulties, but civilizational erasure. It's the kind of language you'd expect from a dystopian novel, not an official government strategy document. And then it lists all the things America apparently thinks are wrong with Europe. EU overreach, migration policies, censorship, cratering birth rates, loss of national identities. Basically, Trump's team looked at Europe and decided they're doing everything wrong and America needs to fix it. Now, imagine you're Keir Starmer, Emmanuel Macron, and Friedrich Merz, and you're reading this. America, your supposed ally, has just published a document saying your civilization is being erased, your policies are terrible, and they're going to actively work against your current direction. And simultaneously, they're trying to force Ukraine to accept a peace deal that rewards Russian aggression. You'd be calling an emergency meeting too, wouldn't you? This is why Monday's meeting at number 10 is so crucial. Europe is basically trying to figure out how to support Ukraine without American help, or potentially even despite American interference. It's a massive shift in the post-World War II order where America was the security guarantor and Europe was the grateful junior partner. Now Europe's having to grow up fast and work out whether it can stand on its own feet when it comes to continental security. The meeting represents something bigger than just Ukraine policy. It's about whether Europe can present a credible alternative to American dominance, whether European nations can actually coordinate effectively when it matters, and whether they're willing to put their money and their military where their mouths are, because supporting Ukraine isn't cheap, and it's not getting any cheaper. If America backs out, Europe has to decide if it's willing to step up or if Ukraine gets left hanging. For Keir Starmer specifically, this is a massive moment. Britain is trying to position itself as a key European player on security issues even after Brexit. This is his chance to show that the UK can convene major players, facilitate difficult conversations, and help shape European policy. It's also his chance to stand up to American pressure and show that Britain won't just roll over when Trump demands something unreasonable. Whether he'll actually do that or quietly acquiesce remains to be seen, but the optics of hosting this meeting are significant. For Zelensky, this meeting is potentially existential. He needs to know that Europe will continue supporting Ukraine even if America doesn't. He needs commitments, not just warm words and sympathetic noises. Because his country is being bombed daily, his people are suffering, and the alternative to continued European support is accepting a deal that essentially hands Putin a victory and Ukrainian territory on a silver platter. For Macron and Merz, this is about European credibility and security architecture. If Russia wins in Ukraine by waiting out Western support, what's to stop them trying